ClancyPasta presents His Best Friends Are Rocks, written by GorillaOfUndeath. I was outside watering my garden in the early hours of the morning. I usually slept in, but watering later on in the day meant I'd scorch my flowers. It was the first year I had such beautiful flowers. I was beginning to feel proud of my backyard. I installed a fence to keep neighbors from prying, but also whipped the overgrown, weed-filled land into something actually appealing. I bent down to pull out a weed that was beginning to grow, when I heard the old man next door talking. Grathius, my old friend. Surely I couldn't do that. I heard no response, and there was silence for a few moments before he spoke again. You really think so? Well, I guess I could think it over. Again, there was no response. Curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to peek through one of the cracks in the fence. A lush green yard was dotted with flowers blooming on the edge of the property. Everything seemed so well maintained, not a single weed could be spotted. There was an old man, his head topped by thin gray strands of hair. His body seemed gaunt and frail. He sat on a cushion in the center of a prominent stone garden. 2 large rocks rested beside him. Perennial stone crop lined the area, weaving its way through the stones. The old man sipped a cup of tea delicately. His yard was so much better than mine, and I felt a tinge of jealousy for a moment. The free time from retirement really had its benefits. What do you think, Alcor? Will that allow me to finally make the transformation? Transformation? And who was he even talking to? I saw no one else around. I leaned forward trying to get a better view of what he was doing. Funny that I put the fence up in an effort to stop prying eyes. If you guys say so, then I guess I'll think it over. That isn't an easy decision. The old man resumed sipping his tea, but I still did not see a single person. He used names earlier, but they were so bizarre. I began to think the old man may be crazy. I shifted my weight trying to get comfortable, but as I did so, I knocked my elbow against the fence. There was an audible thud, and I saw the old man look in my direction. I moved back from the crack in the fence, flinging my hand over my mouth. I hoped he didn't know I was spying on him. I got myself away from the fence and began to roll up the hose, acting like everything was normal. I heard the clatter of stones and a grunt from the other side of the fence before there was a fit of coughing. My bones really ache. I don't think this old body can take much more. I need to join you. There was silence again. I paused, rolling up the hose specifically to listen to any sort of reaction, but there was none. It was perfectly silent until the old man spoke again. Is it really the only way? It has been 44 years we've been married. I've done everything else you've asked. My friends, my family, they're all gone. She's the last one left. You two have become my best friends, but... The old man was interrupted mid-sentence by a second voice. It was the first time today I heard another person speak. Henry? Henry, come inside. It's not good for you to be outside sitting on the ground. All this gardening has done a number on your back. You should at least use a chair if you want to sit out here, the woman said. It's all right, dear. I'm coming in. Is there any more of that tea? The voices grew fainter and fainter until I heard the door to their house slam shut. That must have been his wife. I moved back over to the crack in the fence, looking to see if I missed something, but there was no one else in the backyard. The two rocks he had sat between stood brilliantly, their forms quite beautiful. He really did have a great backyard. The next few days, I followed the same watering routine. I was up early and out watering my flowers before the sun grew too powerful. The same thing seemed to happen every day. The man would come out with tea, sit between the two rocks, and talk. Crathius and Alcor were the two names he used, and I came to the conclusion that he had named the two rocks. I thought it was a little strange, but he seemed to be a lonely old man. People like to assign names to many things. I named my car Betsy. On the other hand, I didn't have conversations with my car, especially not strange requests to transform that man asked about every day. I didn't really see cause for too much concern until Friday morning. I was watering my flowers as usual, but the old man who was normally present by now was not outside. I thought maybe he'd slept in today, but then I heard his door open. His breathing was heavy, followed by repeated grunting noises. I heard the sound of something heavy dragging across the porch, and then into the yard. I had to see what was going on. Lining one eye up, I peered through the crack in the fence. To my horror, the old man dragged a bloodied corpse of a woman. Sweat had formed and trickled down his face. Pausing, he wiped his forehead, blood smearing across it. It must have been his wife, judging by the age. Her body was marked with lacerations, oozing what little blood remained. One deep cut ran across her throat. The old man pulled the body over to the two rocks before falling to the ground in exhaustion. Trying to catch his breath, he spoke. Crathius, Alcor, he said between breaths. I've done it now. She was my last connection. I've got no one else. Let me join you. For a moment there was no response. The man just breathed heavily. I figured the guy was really crazy. He'd lost it. I was going to call the police, but then the old man screamed out in frustration. Let me join you. Immediately, a gasp came from the old man's mouth as he clutched his chest. He bent over in pain. He stayed that way for a few seconds before there was a terrible tearing sound as his heart ripped through muscle and skin to escape his body. The heart levitated between the two rocks, still beating, and then slowly it began to turn gray as the beating slowed until it finally ceased. The heart was now gray and lifeless, as hard as a rock. Small stones began to levitate. The stones flung themselves at the rock heart, entombing it and merging together. The rock grew larger and larger, until at last there was a third rock that had joined Crathius and Alcor. It took its place between them. I stared at the scene. Two bodies laid on the ground, the three rocks towering over them. I began to feel dizzy. My body felt weak. Black flashed across my eyes until I fell unconscious. I was flying now, up in the sky. As I flew through a fluffy cloud, I could see the ground below. It was an expansive field filled with rocks of various sizes and shapes. The field went on seemingly forever, filled with erudite rocks. But it did have its end. When I reached the sea, I could see the littered grounds. Corpses washed up on the beach, while others floated in the waves. Some were bloated and disfigured, others heavily rotted, but they all had one thing in common: a large gaping hole in the chest. I woke up with my head pounding, feeling disturbed from that strange dream or whatever it was. I was still in my backyard. I pulled myself to my feet and looked through the crack in the fence to make sure what I had seen was real. The two bodies laid there, a hole in the man's chest where his heart had erupted from his body. The three rocks seemed both menacing and perfectly normal at the same time. A stony voice popped into my head. "I am Melchizar. Come speak with us, neighbor." Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. I want to give a huge thanks to all of my supporters over at Patreon and YouTube memberships. Your support makes these narrations possible, and I appreciate it a ton. If you'd like to join these lovely ghouls, you can head on over to my Patreon at patreon.com/ClancyPasta, or click the join button below to become a member. And if you'd like creepy cool shirts, make sure to head on over and check out my official merch store for some awesome tees, hoodies, stickers, and more. Alright. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great night. Cheers.